The Galactic Council of Elevated Species had strict protocols for everything, including how to laugh at primitives. When humanity's first faster-than-light ship burst into existence near the Centauri Gateway Station, trailing wisps of what appeared to be actual combustion exhaust, the assembled representatives followed Protocol 7B to the letter. Synchronized tentacle rippling, mandible clicking, and precisely calibrated expressions of superiority. High Chancellor Varaxia of the Meridian Confluence, her crystalline form refracting starlight in carefully measured frequencies, turned all 6 of her sensory arrays toward Ambassador Klaxon of the Hive Gestalt. Another species stumbling into the cosmos, she transmitted on their private quantum frequency. At least these ones managed not to vaporize themselves in the process. Barely. The human ship, ungainly by any civilized standard, looked like it had been cobbled together from industrial surplus and optimism. Its hull bore markings that the Council's universal translators rendered as spirit of innovation, though several linguistic specialists insisted there must be some mistake. Surely no species would be so blatant about their technological inadequacies. First contact proceeded according to established guidelines. The humans were quarantined, scanned for pathogens, finding an alarming number, and eventually permitted to send a single representative aboard the station. They chose Dr. Sarah Chen, a woman whose modest stature and unassuming demeanor caused several council members to check their atmospheric sensors for calibration errors. Surely this couldn't be their chosen diplomat. "We come in peace," Dr. Chen began, using the station's translation field. Several council members engaged their emergency irony filters to avoid sensory overload from such a cliché. "And we bring questions. So many questions." That, at least, aligned with expectations. Primitive species always had questions, usually along the lines of, "How does your amazing technology work? And would you consider sharing it with us? And please don't conquer us." But Dr. Chen's first question caught the council entirely off guard. "Have you solved the coffee problem yet?" The council's collective confusion caused a momentary disruption in the station's gravity field. "The coffee problem," ventured Ambassador Klaxon, their neural network struggling to process the query. "Yes," Chen continued, pulling a small container from her environment suit. "We found that most of our spacecraft's efficiency improvements came from properly caffeinated engineers. But replicating the perfect cup in Zero has been challenging. We thought perhaps more advanced civilizations might have cracked it." The council watched in horrified fascination as Chen demonstrated the brewing process, using what appeared to be primitive hot water and ground beans. The resulting liquid was dark, aromatic, and completely baffling to the assembled representatives. You achieve faster-than-light travel by stimulating your neural pathways with heated vegetable extract." The quantum archon of the Tsari Dominion's voice carried the distinct harmonic of existential crisis. "Oh no," Chen laughed, taking a sip. "The FTL drive was mostly trial and error. And duct tape. Lots of duct tape." In the following weeks, as humanity's diplomatic contingent expanded and formal relations were established, the Council maintained their composure while documenting what they considered to be an endless parade of technological and social absurdities. The humans approached advanced physics like it was a puzzle game, treated ancient alien protocols like suggestions, and seemed pathologically incapable of accepting that something was impossible just because every other species in the galaxy said so. "They asked about our quantum shielding yesterday," reported Security Director Nexus to the Council. "When I explained that our barriers operate on 13 dimensions simultaneously, their engineer just nodded and asked if we considered adding a 14th dimension for redundancy, as if one could simply add dimensions to quantum matrices." 3 days later, the human engineering team submitted a paper theorizing about 17-dimensional quantum matrices, complete with crude drawings on what they called napkins. The Council's top scientists took one look at the calculations, declared them impossible, and quietly began testing them in secured laboratories. The humans were assigned a small sector of space on the galaxy's outer rim, traditionally reserved for species too primitive to cause trouble but too numerous to ignore. They accepted this allocation with suspicious gratitude, asking only for clarification about resource rights and trade route access. The Council granted these requests magnanimously, certain that humanity would take centuries to make any meaningful use of them. No one paid much attention when human trading vessels began appearing in increasingly distant sectors, carrying what they called specialty goods. No one thought it significant when human cultural exchanges began attracting unprecedented attendance. And certainly no one noticed when human diplomatic aides started appearing in advisory positions across multiple species governments, always in junior roles, always helpful, always taking notes. The Council had seen thousands of species rise from primitive beginnings. They had protocols for everything. But they had never encountered a species that turned their own protocols into tools of advancement. They had never met a species that treated galactic civilization like a game to be won through careful preparation and strategic positioning. They had never met humanity before. As the first year of human integration into galactic society drew to a close, Dr. Chen attended the Council's annual assessment meeting. She sat quietly in the observers section, sipping her coffee, now perfectly replicated in zero thanks to a happy accident in their research labs, and taking notes on her primitive datapad. Their progress is within expected parameters, High Chancellor Voraxia declared to the assembled council. They remain safely contained within their designated sector, pursuing technological advancement at a predictable pace. Dr. Chen smiled slightly and continued writing. The council had protocols for everything, including how to laugh at primitives. But they had no protocol for recognizing when the primitives were actually playing a very, very long game. 5 years into humanity's membership in the galactic community, the Tsari Dominion noticed something peculiar about their quantum communication networks. They were running 23% more efficiently than their theoretical maximum. The Quantum Archon assembled their finest minds to investigate this mathematical impossibility, only to discover that the improvement had come from a minor software update, one recommended by a junior human consultant who had been hired to improve user interface accessibility. The human in question, Dr. Marcus Wong, had seemed remarkably unremarkable. He spent most of his time asking questions about how regular Tsari citizens use the communication networks, suggesting small changes to make the systems more user-friendly. No one had thought to question why a primitive species ergonomics expert was interested in quantum encryption protocols. Similar patterns were emerging across the galaxy, though few were connecting the dots. The Meridian Confluence found their crystal matrix farms, yielding unprecedented growth rates after implementing simple organizational suggestions from human agricultural advisors. The High-Gestalt's neural networks began processing information more efficiently following a routine maintenance upgrade designed by human systems analysts. In the human-designated sector, their colonies appeared to be developing at the expected pace for a nascent spacefaring civilization. Their ships still looked ungainly, their technology still seemed primitive, and the representatives still asked endless questions about everything they encountered. But those who looked closer might have noticed something odd about the questions. "Tell me, High Chancellor," Dr. Chen asked during a routine diplomatic function, "how does your species handle the philosophical implications of quantum uncertainty?" She was nursing her ever-present coffee, which had become surprisingly popular among certain council members who had developed a taste for what they called liquid entropy. High Chancellor Voraxia, pleased to display her species' intellectual superiority, launched into a detailed explanation of the Meridian Confluence's centuries of quantum philosophical discourse. She failed to notice that Dr. Chen's questions gradually steered the conversation toward very specific applications of quantum mechanics in Meridian technology. In their outer rim sector, humanity's first major space station took shape. The Council's observers noted with amusement that it looked like a hodgepodge of different architectural styles and technologies, as if the humans couldn't decide on a single approach. They didn't realize this was exactly the point. Integration Testing Facility Alpha, the humans called it. The name was dismissed as another example of human literal-mindedness. No one thought to ask exactly what they were testing, or why the station's power signature sometimes fluctuated in patterns that matched no known technology. The station became known as a hub for what humans called cultural exchange programs. Species from across the galaxy sent representatives, ostensibly to teach humans about advanced civilization. These representatives would return to their worlds with strange new ideas and inexplicable solutions to long-standing problems. "It's remarkable how quickly they learn," noted Ambassador Claxon during a council session, though their implementation of advanced concepts is often unorthodox. The council reviewed reports of human engineering projects with a mixture of amusement and concern. Humans seem to have no respect for the established paths of technological development. They combine technologies in ways that shouldn't work, ignored fundamental principles that every species knew to be absolute, and somehow achieved results that were simultaneously crude and inexplicably effective. When the Drachnid Imperium's flagship suffered a catastrophic drive failure near human space, they reluctantly accepted an offer of assistance from the nearest human colony. The repair team arrived in what looked like a salvaged mining vessel, carrying tools that the Drachnid's AI classified as pre-industrial. 3 days later, the flagship was operating at 112% of its original efficiency. The repair team's report was a maze of human idioms and technical jargon that somehow made even less sense when translated. It mentioned something about percussive maintenance, thinking outside the box, and cross-pollinating engineering paradigms. The Drachnid engineers were simultaneously offended and intrigued. What no one realized was that humanity had turned the galaxy's dismissal of their capabilities into their greatest advantage. Every technological secret shared condescendingly with the primitive humans was analyzed, deconstructed, and rebuilt in ways their original creators had never imagined. Every diplomatic interaction was an intelligence-gathering operation disguised as wide-eyed curiosity. In their laboratories, hidden beneath the appearance of haphazard experimentation, human scientists were combining technologies from across the galaxy in ways that defied conventional wisdom. They didn't just copy advanced alien technology. They reimagined it, stripped it down to its fundamental principles, and rebuilt it with human ingenuity. Dr. Wong, now leading a team of human efficiency consultants across 3 sectors, continued suggesting minor improvements to various species systems. Each change seemed logical in isolation. No one noticed that these changes were gradually creating a vast network of compatible technologies, all quietly optimized for human understanding and control. Back on Integration Testing Facility Alpha, Dr. Chen hosted another cultural exchange symposium. Over cups of coffee that somehow tasted different to each species, representatives from across the galaxy shared their knowledge with the eager humans. They didn't notice that their hosts were sharing remarkably little in return, or that the humans' questions were becoming increasingly specific and sophisticated. "We're so grateful for everything you're teaching us," Dr. Chen told the assembled delegates. "Humanity has so much to learn about being part of the galactic community." She smiled as she sipped her coffee, watching the quantum encryption experts, the crystal matrix farmers, and the neural network engineers all sharing their knowledge freely with the primitive humans. The council had protocols for monitoring technological advancement, but they had no way to measure innovation that came disguised as imitation. The humans knew exactly what they were doing. They just had to make sure no one else figured it out until it was too late. 10 years into humanity's galactic membership, strange rumors began circulating through diplomatic channels. The Drachnid Imperium's notorious trade barriers had inexplicably softened for certain human merchants. The Crystal Syndicates, known for their xenophobic isolation, had begun requesting human cultural advisors. Even the Hive Gestalt had started incorporating what they called human randomization factors into their decision-making matrices. At the heart of this transformation was the newly established Human Diplomatic Corps, led by Ambassador Maria Santos. Her office in the Outer Rim sector was modest, almost deliberately so, but it had become an unlikely nexus of galactic politics. "Humans, just listen. explained Third Adjutant Kovacs of the Drachnid Imperium during a private gathering of mid-level bureaucrats. No judgments, no immediate demands. They ask questions about your children's educational achievements and remember the answers months later. It's unsettling, but oddly comfortable. What Kovacs didn't mention was how his trade policies had gradually shifted after a human cultural attaché had helped his youngest offspring secure a prestigious position in a multi-species academic exchange program. The changes were subtle, a tariff reduction here, a regulatory exemption there, but they all somehow benefited human interests. Similar stories played out across the galaxy. The humans had mastered the art of solving problems no one had officially acknowledged. When the crystal syndicates faced a devastating resonance cascade in their primary matrix farms, unofficial human consultants quietly provided solutions, asking only for continued friendship and cultural exchange in return. Dr. Chen, now serving as humanity's chief scientific liaison, continued her coffee diplomacy with increasing sophistication. Her office in Integration Testing Facility Alpha had become famous for its ability to match visitors with the perfect blend of what she called artisanal coffee varieties. Species that couldn't even digest human beverages would spend hours in her company, somehow leaving with both solutions to their most pressing problems and a strange reluctance to examine exactly how those solutions had been reached. It's remarkable, mused Ambassador Claxon to the Council, how often major policy decisions across multiple species align with casual suggestions made by human diplomatic staff over informal beverages. The Council commissioned a study of human influence patterns, but the results were inconclusive. Human diplomatic activities followed no recognized protocols. Their relationships seemed to exist in a quantum state of being simultaneously insignificant and essential. What the Council failed to understand was that humanity had turned their greatest perceived weakness, their lack of natural advantages or advanced technology, into an unprecedented diplomatic superpower. They had no traditional power base to threaten, no ancient alliances to leverage, and thus no obvious agenda to defend against. The breakthrough in understanding human strategy came from an unexpected source. A junior analyst in the Council's Cultural Integration Office, reviewing centuries of data, noticed a pattern in Earth's pre-contact entertainment media. Humans had been practicing their approach to galactic politics for generations through what they called workplace comedies and office politics. They've turned the entire galaxy into their office, the analyst reported, just before being reassigned to a distant monitoring station for displaying concerning levels of pattern recognition. But the pattern was there for those who knew where to look. Every human diplomatic mission included what they called support staff, specialists in psychology, sociology, and what they termed organizational dynamics. These individuals spent their time building relationships with the beings they called the people who actually get things done: administrative assistants, maintenance technicians, and mid-level managers across species. Dr. Wang's efficiency consulting firm had expanded into what he called systems integration services. His teams were now present on hundreds of worlds, each consultant building networks of influence through a combination of genuine problem-solving and carefully cultivated personal relationships. Humans understand infrastructure, noted Atsari systems administrator during a regulatory review. Not just the technical kind, but the social infrastructure that holds civilization together. They see connections we never noticed. The human approach to trade followed similarly subtle patterns. Their merchants didn't compete for major contracts or high-profile routes. Instead, they specialized in what they called niche markets, small but critical supply chains that larger trading houses had overlooked. When those supply chains proved essential to larger economic systems, humans were somehow always positioned to offer solutions to problems no one else had anticipated. Ambassador Santo's diplomatic corps had developed a reputation for resolving conflicts before they officially began. Major species would arrive at council sessions prepared for confrontation, only to find their positions had already been quietly adjusted through unofficial channels. The humans called this preventive diplomacy. Everyone else called it uncanny. On Integration Testing Facility Alpha, construction began on a new wing dedicated to what humans called cross-cultural innovation studies. The facility's power fluctuations had become more frequent, but now similar patterns were being reported across human space. The Council's observers noted these anomalies but couldn't determine their significance. The humans, as always, had ready explanations involving equipment calibration and harmonic resonance testing. What no one had yet realized was that humanity wasn't just building influence. They were creating a new type of galactic civilization. Every relationship formed, every problem solved, every supply chain optimized was another thread in an invisible web that spanned the galaxy. They weren't competing with the existing power structures. They were building an entirely new framework around them. The Council continued to monitor human development according to traditional metrics: technological advancement, territorial expansion, military capability. They remained confident that humanity was safely contained within acceptable parameters for a developing species. Meanwhile, Dr. Chen hosted another cultural exchange symposium on Alpha Station. Over perfectly tailored cups of coffee, representatives from across the galaxy shared their concerns, their ambitions, and their secrets with the attentive humans. The humans, in turn, shared nothing but understanding, suggestions, and what they called networking opportunities. The galaxy was changing, but so gradually that few noticed. Power wasn't shifting. It was transforming into something new, something that operated according to human principles of influence rather than traditional measures of strength. And humanity was just getting started. The crystalline crisis began with a simple anomaly in the meridian confluence's quantum matrices, a subtle distortion in their crystal lattices that even their most advanced systems failed to identify as a threat. Within days, the distortion had spread across their crystal-based technologies, threatening to destabilize the foundations of their civilization. High Chancellor Varaxia called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. "Our crystal matrices are experiencing cascade failures across all systems," she reported, her form flickering as the quantum distortions interfered with her projection. "The phenomenon is spreading faster than our containment protocols can manage." The crisis quickly escalated beyond the meridian confluence. Species that had adapted meridian crystal technology, which included most of the galaxy's major powers, found their systems failing in similar patterns. The Tsari Dominion's quantum networks began collapsing. The Hive Gestalt's neural interfaces showed signs of degradation. The Council's finest minds gathered to address the crisis, but their solutions proved ineffective. The distortion seemed to adapt to every countermeasure, growing stronger with each failed attempt to contain it. As panic spread across the galaxy, few noticed the quiet activity in human space. Dr. Wong was the first to officially recognize the pattern. "It's not a natural phenomenon," he reported during an emergency conference on Integration Testing Facility Alpha. "The distortion is behaving like a quantum virus, one designed to target specific crystalline structures used in advanced technology." The Council initially dismissed his analysis. Humans couldn't possibly understand the complexities of crystal-based quantum systems well enough to identify such a threat. But as their own efforts continued to fail, desperation began to override pride. "We've been studying your crystal technology since our first contact," Dr. Chen explained to the Council. "Not just how they work, but how they could fail. It's something humans have always done. Looking for failure points helps us understand systems better than just studying their intended functions." What she didn't mention was how humanity had spent years preparing for exactly this type of crisis. Their seemingly primitive technology, their endless questions about crystal matrices, their cultural exchange programs, all had been part of a vast research project aimed at understanding and improving upon the galaxy's fundamental technologies. Ambassador Santos made a formal offer of assistance to the Council. "We believe we can help," she stated simply. "But we'll need unrestricted access to affected systems and full cooperation from all involved species." The Council debated for precious hours as the crisis worsened. Finally, with their civilization literally crystallizing around them, they agreed to humanity's terms. What followed stunned the galaxy. Human ships, Sleek vessels that looked nothing like their usual cobbled-together designs emerged from hidden docks across their sector. Teams of human specialists, equipped with technology that somehow combined crystal matrices with what they called quantum analog hybrid systems, deployed across affected worlds. Integration Testing Facility Alpha revealed its true nature. Those power fluctuations that had puzzled observers for years. They had been tests of humanity's own crystal matrix technology, developed in secret while the galaxy watched their obvious facilities and ignored their subtle advances. The solution isn't to fight the distortion, Dr. Wong explained to assembled teams of multi-species experts. It's to let it happen in a controlled way, then rebuild the systems to be more resilient. We've developed a method to transform crystal matrices into hybrid structures that are immune to this type of cascade failure. The human teams worked with unprecedented efficiency, implementing solutions that demonstrated an impossible level of understanding of crystal technology. Every suggestion they made, every modification they implemented, showed years of careful preparation and research. As the crisis response continued, the galaxy's powers began to realize the full scope of human advancement. Those primitive-looking human ships were carrying quantum computers that rivaled anything that Sari had developed. Their cultural exchange facility housed laboratories that had been quietly revolutionizing crystal matrix technology while appearing to merely study it. Dr. Chen's coffee diplomacy took on new meaning as species realized that humans had been gathering critical information about their technologies while appearing to engage in simple cultural exchange. Every question asked, every system studied, had been part of a comprehensive effort to understand and improve upon the galaxy's most advanced technologies. The crisis was contained within weeks, but its implications would reshape galactic civilization. Humanity had revealed capabilities that should have taken centuries to develop, demonstrating an understanding of crystal technology that rivaled species who had been using it for millennia. How? Demanded High Chancellor Voraxia during the crisis debriefing. How did you advance so quickly without anyone noticing? We didn't advance quickly, Dr. Chen explained, sipping her ever-present coffee. We advanced carefully. While everyone watched for big leaps in technology, we made thousands of tiny steps. While the galaxy waited for us to follow their development paths, we found our own ways forward. The council chambers fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just solved the crisis. They had revealed themselves as technological equals to the galaxy's most advanced species, and they had done it while appearing to be primitive newcomers just learning their way around the cosmos. But even this revelation wasn't the true extent of humanity's transformation. As the galaxy would soon discover, the crystalline crisis was just the beginning of a much larger change in the cosmic order. In the aftermath of the crystalline crisis, the galaxy underwent a transformation so subtle that most species didn't realize it was happening until it was already complete. Humanity's influence, carefully cultivated over years of apparent submission, finally revealed its true nature. The first sign came when the Tsari Dominion attempted to restrict human access to their quantum networks, fearing further technological advancement from the supposedly primitive species. They discovered, to their shock, that their networks had become fundamentally dependent on human-designed protocols. The efficiency upgrades implemented by Dr. Wong's teams over the years had quietly made humanity integral to the galaxy's technological infrastructure. We didn't infiltrate your systems, Dr. Wong explained to a stunned assembly of Sari administrators. We improved them. You just never asked how. His presentation revealed how human innovations had been seamlessly integrated into virtually every major technological system in the galaxy, all under the guise of routine maintenance and optimization. Ambassador Santos called an unprecedented meeting of all major galactic powers. The human diplomatic corps, no longer maintaining their carefully crafted appearance of junior partners in galactic civilization, demonstrated how deeply they had woven themselves into the fabric of cosmic society. Look at your trade routes, Santos suggested to the assembled representatives. Notice how many critical supply chains rely on human merchants who specialized in niche markets. Consider how many of your administrative systems are now optimized through human-designed protocols. Count how many of your young leaders were educated in human exchange programs. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had made themselves essential to it. Every diplomatic contact, every technological upgrade, every cultural exchange had been part of a vast strategy to integrate human influence so thoroughly into galactic civilization that removing it would be catastrophic. Dr. Chen, now revealed as the architect of humanity's diplomatic strategy, finally explained the true purpose of her endless coffee meetings. We learned early on that every species, no matter how advanced, has basic needs. The need to be heard, the need to feel understood, the need for someone to appreciate their achievements and sympathize with their challenges. We didn't try to compete with your power. We just filled the gaps you didn't even know you had. Integration Testing Facility Alpha opened its doors fully for the first time, revealing itself as the nerve center of humanity's galactic operation. The power fluctuations that had puzzled observers for years were actually the testing signatures of a vast quantum network that paralleled and enhanced existing galactic systems. Humanity has become the galaxy's invisible infrastructure, Dr. Wong acknowledged, not through conquest or technological superiority, but through understanding and adaptation. We didn't need to be the most advanced species, we just needed to be the most comprehensive in our approach. The Galactic Council, faced with this revelation, found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Humanity had achieved dominance without violence, conquest, or even direct competition. They had become apex predators not through force, but through making themselves indispensable. Consider your options, Ambassador Santos suggested gently. You could try to remove human influence from your systems, but that would require rebuilding virtually every optimization we've implemented over the years. You could attempt to restrict our access, but that would mean losing the support structure your civilizations have come to rely on. Or you could accept that humanity has earned its place among the galaxy's leading species, not through power, but through service. The Council's deliberations were brief. They had no choice but to acknowledge humanity's new status. But even as they drafted new protocols to reflect the changed balance of power, they failed to grasp the full significance of what had happened. Humanity hadn't just become another powerful species in the galaxy. They had fundamentally changed how power itself operated in cosmic civilization. The old measures of technological advancement and military might had been quietly superseded by networks of influence, shared innovation, and mutual dependence. We never wanted to conquer the galaxy, Dr. Chen explained, sharing one final cup of coffee with the council members. We wanted to improve it. Every problem we solved, every relationship we built, every system we optimized was aimed at creating a more integrated, efficient, and cooperative civilization. We became apex predators not by being the strongest, but by being the most connected. As the implications rippled across the galaxy, species began to understand the true nature of humanity's achievement. They hadn't just risen to the top of the galactic hierarchy, they had transformed it into something new. Power was no longer about dominance, but about integration. Strength was measured not in weapons or territory, but in relationships and mutual benefit. The Human Diplomatic Corps continued its work, now openly leading initiatives to further integrate galactic civilization. Dr. Wong's teams kept improving systems across the cosmos, no longer hiding their innovations behind a facade of primitive technology. And Dr. Chen's coffee diplomacy evolved into a formal school of interspecies relations, teaching the art of connection and influence to a new generation of diplomats from all species. Humanity had become the galaxy's apex predator, not through teeth or claws, not through advanced technology or military might, but through understanding, adaptation, and the patient weaving of countless threads into an unbreakable web of influence. They had proven that true power comes not from dominating others, but from making oneself essential to them. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a new species was making its first faster-than-light journey, about to discover a galaxy shaped by humanity's quiet revolution.